Hello everyone. My name is Chanel. I've been a registered dietitian for about 4 years now. I've worked in various settings such as private practice, clinical trials, public health, and in pediatrics. And I'm here today to talk to you about eating seasonally, a dietitian's tips and tricks. So, what we're going to go through today is what is a dietitian? Why is nutrition important? Eating seasonally, hydration, and I'm going to leave you with 6 steps. So to start off with, what is a dietitian? So it can get quite overwhelming at times when you have all these different terms being thrown at you, nutritionist, dietitian, what's the difference? So to start off with, a nutritionist is not a protected title. You can have a degree in nutrition or a certificate, basically meaning you can study for 1 day or 4 years and call yourself a nutritionist. There's no regulation around this. You then have a registered nutritionist. So this is a protected title that is reviewed by the Nutrition Society, and you do need to have either a degree or a master's in nutrition. When you're a registered nutritionist, you can work in industries such as public health, government, academia, and community. And lastly, we have a registered dietitian. This is also a protected title. We're reviewed by the Dietitians Board. We need to have a degree in nutrition and a master's in dietetics, and we can work in the same areas as a registered nutritionist, but additional to this, we can also work in clinical settings such as hospitals. So hopefully that makes things a little bit more clear on the different titles that is available out there. So why is nutrition important? You've probably heard that what you eat is really important, and you might not know why this is the case. So first of all, in terms of health and disease prevention, proper nutrition supports the immune system, reducing risk of chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancers. It's important for energy and vitality, so nutrients provide the energy necessary for daily activities and overall vitality, improving physical and mental performance and well-being. Growth and development. So proper nutrition is essential for proper growth and development, particularly in children and adolescents, ensuring bone, muscle, and brain development. Weight management. So balanced nutrition helps maintain a healthy weight, preventing obesity and other health-related issues. And lastly, for our mental well-being. Adequate nutrition supports brain function and mental health, reducing the risk of mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. So now we get to the main topic, eating seasonally. What does this mean? Eating seasonally refers to the practice of consuming foods, particularly fruits and vegetables, that are harvested during their natural growing seasons. However, it is not only about what we eat, but how we respond to various conditions in each season. And this is something that I'll elaborate on a little bit later. There are several benefits to eating seasonally, such as nutrient density and freshness. So seasonal produce is harvested at its peak ripeness. This means that it's often higher in nutrient content compared to out-of-season produce. The second point is it is thought that fresher produce tends to retain more vitamins and minerals. So this is due to nutrient degradation that can occur after long storage and transportation times. As you know, fruits and vegetables spoil quite easily. However, I would like to point out that there is no nutritional difference between fresh, frozen, or canned fruits and vegetables. So while fresh sometimes might taste a little better, the nutritional value is the same all around. So buying frozen vegetables is ideal for smaller families as they can have a longer shelf life. They're also ideal for people who don't have a lot of time to prepare their fruits and vegetables for their meals. Canned fruits and vegetables are also a great option, but it's important to ensure that they are canned in fresh water or natural juices. You really want to avoid things that are canned in syrups because this has unnecessary fats and salts. If you do have cans at home that are in syrups, I recommend giving them a wash before consuming them just to get rid of all the unnecessary fats and salts. Variety and balance. So eating seasonally encourages a diverse diet. as different fruits and vegetables are available at different times of the year. We always say eat the rainbow, as different colored fruits and vegetables are a good indication of different vitamins and minerals. This variety can help ensure a broad spectrum of nutrients and can prevent dietary monotony. So it basically makes our food more interesting, the more colorful and the different things that we try. So having a variety can also impact the flavor and the quality. Seasonal fruits and vegetables typically taste better because they are fresher and they have ripened naturally. The enhanced flavor can make healthy foods more enjoyable and encourage better meal habits. Eating seasonally can also encourage you to try new fruits and new vegetables and potentially even new methods of cooking. So it's all about playing with your food and having fun. The environmental impact. So, as you may be aware, eating seasonally also reduces your carbon footprint. Um, this is because seasonal eating involves consuming locally grown produce, which reduces your carbon footprints associated with the transportation costs. Buying from your local markets and your farmers, supporting your local economy and community. This can also promote awareness of agricultural practices and food production processes. It also supports sustainable farming practices that can reduce the reliance of pesticides and preservatives used to prolong shelf life. So, just basically keeping everything more fresh. Cost effectiveness. So, when in-season produce is often more affordable due to its high availability and lower transportation costs. This can make healthy eating more accessible and cost-effective for individuals and families. Going back to that example of having a smaller family eating frozen vegetables, this may be a more cost-effective solution for them because frozen vegetables don't spoil as easily as fresh vegetables. However, for a larger family, the more cost-effective decision might be eating what's in season because you get a larger quantity for a lower price. So you really have to judge what suits your situation the best. And there are several other factors to consider as well. So many traditional diets are based on seasonal eating patterns. So this can reconnect individuals with their culture and ancestral food practices. So for example, in New Zealand in summer, we have a lot of strawberries. So we might associate a strawberry ice cream with summer. Additionally, in countries such as Asia, you have mango season, and as a child eating mangoes, that might be something that's a tradition for you. So this can foster a deeper appreciation for food and its origins. The natural cycle of seasonal produce can align with the body's needs, such as hydrating fruits in the summer and nutrient-dense root vegetables in the winter. So there is some alignment with what we need for our bodies and what is in season at the time as well. Mindful eating. So eating seasonally encourages a connection with the food that you consume, promoting mindfulness and the appreciation for nature's food cycle. This can lead to more intentional food choices, making you more connected with your food decisions and your overall eating patterns. And lastly, food preservation. So during seasonal eating, this can also lead to conversations around preserving seasonal produce through canning, freezing, drying, or fermenting. These techniques can help extend the availability of seasonal nutrients throughout the year. So for example, when there's a lot of lemons in season, some people try and make that into a jam, which they can enjoy for a lot longer or even throughout the year. So moving on to hydration, what can be hydrating us in seasons? Sometimes we don't really realize it, but there are a lot of different dehydrating factors. So there's the hot sun, there's air conditioning, there's cold snow, there's heaters, especially now in winter, that can be quite dehydrating. Physical activity due to sweat, sometimes just, age, and lastly, medications as well can sometimes be quite dehydrating. So why is this important? Why is balancing hydration of interest to us? So the body's signals for thirst and hunger are actually quite similar and often hard to differentiate. So sometimes when you're thinking, oh, I'm actually really hungry, it's actually thirst and you're not used to differentiating those those signals. And so it's really important that we have a good balance. So, for example, if you're not drinking enough fluids throughout the day, this causes you to be more likely to overeat and binge to compensate. And conversely, if you're actually drinking too much during the day, you'll be depriving your body of essential nutrients that are available in foods, which can lead to long-term health issues. So it's really important to make sure that we've got a good balance of food and hydration. And you might have picked up that I was saying hydration with fluids and not with water. So I just want to elaborate on what is a fluid. So the following list on the left-hand side counts as fluids. That's water, milk, teas, coffees, juices, and so forth. Soups is something I'd like to point out as well, even though that's usually a meal. That is a fluid and it's hydrating. We do recommend sticking to water and milk as your preferences, but in your overall fluid count for your day, all of these options count. And if you are trying to keep track of your fluid intake, just a little bit of guidance around measurements. So your average glass size is about 250 mils and your average mug size is about 300 mils. So that's one way of quantitatively keeping track of how much fluid you're drinking. A more easier route is looking at your pee. So looking at your urine is really important. Pees and poos, it's our body's way of telling us what's going on and communicating with us. So I'd always encourage you to have a look. And we really want to be at that 1 to 3 level, hydrated, pale, odorless. This is how we know that our body's happy and that we're at a good hydration level. If it's 4 to 6, this is mildly dehydrated, so it's slightly darker urine, and this could mean, okay, I need to go drink some water or some fluids right now. And lastly, dehydrated, 7 to 8. So this is quite dark, and this is usually the kind of pee that we have when we wake up in the morning because we've gone about 8 hours without drinking any fluids. But it's a good indication to keep track of how our hydration's going. I just want to also point out that it's not only our fluid intake that can change the color of our urine, it can also be certain foods, medications, vitamins, and supplements. So if you do have any concerns around this, please do direct your questions to your health professionals for more specific advice. So here we go, 6 steps to eating seasonally. Number 1, change habits. This is usually a very, very hard step for all of us. But eating healthy and seasonally comes down to changing habits. Take small steps and choose one new habit to implement each week into your daily life. And once this is set in, we can add another habit. So don't feel like you need to change everything right now. Pick something easy. For example, in the morning, I'm going to have 1 glass of water after my cup of coffee. And once that starts sticking, we can start building our way to ingraining more habits, healthy habits. Have a plan. So strategic planning is key. It's helpful to plan our meals. So for example, again, starting off small, maybe I'll plan meals for 2 days, and then I can build my way up to planning meals for the whole week. Number 3, don't make it complicated. So the typical excuse that we have is, oh, I don't have enough time for cooking, but some of the best recipes are often the easiest to make. So start off small, try out a new ingredient or a new recipe each week, and stay away from pre-packed foods so that you're not consuming more salts or sugars or fats that are not necessary. I also recommend taking a few hours on the weekend to plan out your meals according to what's in season and creating a shopping list. Once you start doing this, it becomes easier over time as well. So dedicating a little bit of time now is going to help in the long run because you may notice that you tend to buy the same things each time when you go to the grocery store. So if you spend a little time looking at it now, it'll save you time in the long run as well. Number 4, buy fresh. So again, check out your local farmers markets and support your local greengrocers. Number 5, shop smart. So check out local foods, co-ops, or produce delivery services with an emphasis on local foods. Alternatively, you can grow your own produce. This gives complete control while you witness the cycles of nature's firsthand. Plant some, balcony herbs or backyard veggies, and it's a hobby as well as something that's good for your body. And lastly, the sixth step is eat smart. So, to control what you eat and drink every day and to be able to get out of bed and exercise regularly, as well as get enough sleep, these are the key ingredients: eating well, hydration, sleep, and exercise. Think about what you put into your mouth every time that you eat and drink. Is what I'm consuming adding value to my health, or is it harming it? And this is a nice way to be more mindful about what you're eating and your daily habits as well. So I appreciate that's a lot of information in a short amount of time. So I'm going to give you a very quick little summary as well. So having proper nutrition is essential for good health. Try to shop for fruits and vegetables in season. Stay hydrated. There is no nutritional difference between fresh, canned, or frozen. Eat colorfully. And lastly, failing to plan is planning to fail. So I'd like to thank you all for attending the session today. It's been great having your attention. Please feel free to reach out to me via the Ignite platform for a one-on-one consultation. Additionally, I am available for workshops, presentations on various nutritional and health topics as well. And I'd now like to open the floor for any questions.
Kia ora, Chanel. Thank you for that. That was really awesome. We've already got a question here ready to go. Does dried fruit maintain its nutritional integrity?
No, not necessarily. So while drying fruits is great for preserving it for longer, when you take out dried fruit basically takes out the water content, so it does change the nutritional value. So having a dehydrated apple slice is not equivalent to having a normal apple slice, for example, because they do preserve it with higher sugar contents and other preservatives as well.
Cool, thank you. I have a question. Is
Yeah.
there a way that you can sort of work out how much water you're supposed to have in a day?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, on average, your hydration levels is the lower end is 30 mils per kg, and the upper end is 40 mils per kg. So, if you take your weight, which is maybe say, 50, for example, if you times your weight by 30, that's the lower end in liters of how much fluid you need. And then if you times it by 40, the higher end of how much fluid you need. And so if you have that range readily available to you, on days that it's really hot or you've got the heater blasting or you've done a lot of physical activity, I'll be skewing towards that higher upper end. And on days where I'm maybe just in the office working and not doing much, I'm better off on the lower end.
Cool. Just had another one. How can you get enough water before sleep without needing to pee in the evening?
Oh, wow. This is a good question, isn't it? So, that's a great question. So the best way to avoid this is to stay hydrated throughout the day. So I know that sometimes we're so busy throughout our lives that the only time we have a chance to drink water is just before we sleep, and then our sleep gets disturbed. So what I would recommend is having water bottles available to us quite readily. So for me, I have a water bottle in my office as well as, in my living room so that I can remember to have a sip whenever needed. Something else that's helped with clients as well is setting reminders on their phones, little drink reminders, just to help build that habit over time so that you're staying hydrated throughout the day and you don't need to scull a whole bunch of water at the end.
Awesome. Is it okay to drink really cold water or would you recommend warm water?
Um, yeah, so this is a little bit more of a trickier question. So anything that you put in, depending on temperature, your body's going to have to work to bring it up to a certain amount of temperature. I wouldn't say cold water is bad or warm water is good or anything like that. Um, I think as long as you are drinking water, that's great. But room temperature water is more preferable for your body because it kind of uses less energy warming that water up for digestion, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Cool. Do you have a suggestion for daily protein intake, sources and amounts? Question mark.
Yeah. So similar to that rule around hydration. So in terms of protein intake, We recommend 1 gram of protein per kg if you're wanting to maintain. So again, if I was 50 kgs, I would need 50 grams of protein a day. Do bear in mind, you can't just have 50 grams of protein in one shot because protein is metabolized, processed through our body throughout the day. So you want to be going no more than 4 hours without having protein if you're trying to maintain and potentially build muscle. If you are wanting to build muscle, I would up the calculations to about 1.1 or 1.2 grams per kg. Sources of protein would be, your meats. So it's categorized into two categories, which is known as heme and non-heme. So heme is your red meats, fleshy kind of meats that are complete proteins. And then you have non-heme as well, which is your nuts, your legumes, your eggs, and so forth. So it's quite easy to get the sources of proteins just by a quick Google as well.
Cool, thank you. Could you please touch on the healthy plate model?
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite question if you've seen me before. So I've thankfully got a pen next to me. So the healthy plate model is basically a tool that has been designed um, to help estimate portions at each meal so that we know how much we need. So if I show you this, it's my plate and I've divided it into 3 different parts. What we recommend, especially for lunch and dinner, is half of your plate should be vegetables. Okay. So that includes your broccoli, your spinach, your carrots, and all of that. Then 1/4 is carbohydrates. So this is your rice and your pasta. I do also want to point out that this 1/4 also includes your kumara and your potatoes, so your starchy vegetables. And lastly, you have 1/4 being proteins. So this is your meats, your legumes, your fishes, and all of that. And so this is quite a nice framework to make sure that at each meal you're having good proportions of all the different food groups.
Cool, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? I think I have a question. Does proteins and I guess more so meat and poultry and fish, do they have seasons the same way as sort of vegetables and fruit do?
My farming knowledge is a little bit limited, unfortunately. But I would say that with how farming is set up, there's quite a good there's quite a good availability throughout the year. I know that a lot of countries, including New Zealand, import export meat. So there's pretty good availability throughout. And they have good preservation techniques as well. I think where we're more worried about eating seasonally would be around the fruits and vegetables because they spoil a lot easier. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Is there any other questions? Ooh, Um, Someone has said that their wife, who is 75% veggie and heavy menstrual cycles, has trouble maintaining high levels of blood iron. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, so this is a little bit tricky. I would recommend booking a one-on-one consult for something so specific, if I'm being honest. We'd need to be looking at your specific situation, medications and your factors, and then I'd be able to advise a little bit easier.
Cool, thank you. Would you have any suggestions for whānau with picky eaters on how to get how to get more vegetables in that way? If
Yeah,
you've got someone
yeah.
who doesn't like vegetables.
This is always a favorite question as well. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky with children sometimes. I mean, in extreme cases, I would again recommend seeing a dietitian. They have tips and tricks to help with this over time. Concepts such as food chaining as well to slowly, gradually get a child to increase their variety in foods. But if it's nothing, too serious, grating up fruit and vegetables into your meals are a great way to go. So, for example, if you're making a lasagna and you grate in zucchini and carrots, it's really hard for them to pick out, and they're probably going to be eating it without realizing. And so that's a win-win.
Cool, thank you. Someone has mentioned using the water formula, they got 3, almost 4 liters a day. And is that how would someone get that much water in?
Yeah, so you're talking about 3, almost 4. So if we go back to how the question was worded, 3 to 4 liters of water. I'm going
Oh,
to change that water to fluids. There we go. So remember that fluids is what we're wanting, not just water. I know that there was an old myth around, oh, you have to have 8 glasses of water a day. And I just want to say that that's not the case. It's fluids. So so if, for example, we're sticking on the higher end, that is 4, if you have, a cup of coffee and a glass of water in the morning, that's already 500 mils. And that's only if you're having a glass. Chances are you're having a mug. So that's already a little bit over half a liter that you've had. So when you take sips throughout the day, they add up quite quickly, and that's why we say sip, so that you're not overwhelming your body and feeling like you're forcing it. The other thing that's funny about thirst is that the more you drink, the more thirstier you feel. So you have a sip and your body thinks, oh, I actually really like this, I want some more water, I want some more fluid. And then your body starts to naturally remind you, like, hey, you're getting dehydrated, you need to take a sip now. And so gradually over time you start to be able to increase your fluid intake a lot easier.
that makes total sense. Thank you. Someone has asked, I'm dairy free. What can they eat to maintain good calcium intake?
Yeah. So, in a world where there's a lot of allergies and difficulties, food companies have had this great concept of fortification. So, fortification basically means they add in the goodness that is maybe not necessarily there to begin with. So, for example, cow's milk is probably the best example. So, you can have cow's milk and you can have almond milk. And so, you have to make sure that when you're dairy free and if you're having something like almond milk, it's fortified. So you'd be looking for the word fortification on the food label. And basically, what they're fortifying the milk with is with calcium and with vitamin D, so that you're still getting the goodness that the dairy product should be having without actually having the allergen, the irritant of dairy that you can't consume.
That's really interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool. I have another question. Do you have any sort of opinions on like multivitamins and stuff like that to aid in nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, overall, if you're eating often, regularly, and a variety, just how we discussed. So, having a good, colorful range of food. There shouldn't be any need for a vitamin or a mineral unless you are, uh, there's a health condition or a health concern, or if you're preparing for pregnancy or something like that. Because they're called micronutrients for a reason, or minerals for a reason, because you only need a small amount. So anything in excess, if you're having too much of it, your body's just going to pee it out basically. And so it's kind of wasted. So as long as you're having, healthy, balanced meals, good variety of food, your body should be able to have all that it needs.
Awesome. Thank you. Would you say that that's the same for like Barocca and like things like that as well?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when we're hydrating ourselves, we do need electrolytes and things like that as well, where Baroque and things come into play. And I would really say rely on your body's signals for that. I will actually add that magnesium and zinc are two components that are naturally lacking in our New Zealand soil. So we don't on average, everyone in the country is lower in magnesium and zinc. So those would be supplements that are quite safe to have. Please check if you have any health conditions first. And those two vitamins are great to have before you sleep because it helps getting a deeper sleep and with muscle relaxation as well. So yeah, usually if someone's on magnesium or zinc, that's completely fine. But if they're taking a whole bunch of multivitamins, it's really not necessary.
Cool. Awesome. Do for someone who's sort of like new to understanding the seasons, the veggies and stuff that are in season and that, would you be able to like give us it doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, but give us some examples of some fruit and veggie that are in season at the moment?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head in all honesty, but Google is a great tool for all this stuff as well. And even when you travel, I would recommend just giving a quick Google of what's in season in terms of fruit and vegetables. It's also quite obvious when you go to your local grocery store, you'll see that things are on special, and it's usually because they're in season as well. So that'll be a good indication, and then we can make a judgment based on that.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Does anybody, oh, one more just came through, they beat me to it. Does lettuce have good nutrition? It seems to be just watery.
Yeah, so that's a hydration factor of lettuce. So, I mean, every single vegetable has their own nutritional value. And like we say, it's great to have a variety of fruits and vegetables. So I wouldn't say, only have lettuce and you're set. It's a green leafy vegetable. It is more on the hydrating side of things. But while it tastes maybe more watery, there are vitamins and minerals in there that are good for your body as well. So it's a nice base to a salad.
Cool. Thank you. Sweet. Is there any more questions? We'll maybe give you one more minute. I think that this webinar comes at a good time with Masariki over the weekend, and I think for many people, having meals together and eating good food from the land, from the Kaimoana, it's a good time for this.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think sometimes we get a little bit caught up with just eating because we're hungry, and that we don't actually have the time to pay attention to what we're eating and why we're eating as well. So it's a nice little reminder as well.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, if nobody else has any more questions, we might wrap it up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks everybody for attending. As I said, this has been recorded, so we'll pop that out on our resource library and in the newsletter in the coming weeks. But yeah, go well, everybody. Have an awesome Masariki. And yeah, stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chanel. This is awesome. I
No worries.
personally learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody else did as well.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining.